Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know if they are hearing me. Good afternoon, everyone.
On my end, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
So I welcome you all to today's engagement seminar for CPA 17, that is auditing and other assurance services. My name is Deborah Tujushire. I am an examinations officer at ICPAU. And today our presenter is CPA Nicholas Mushaventa. I'm sure CPA Nicholas is not new to most of us who are on the platform, who are on the call today. Nicholas Mushaventa is a partner at BDO. He's our current CPA of the year, an award that he got recently at the recent annual seminar. And he has facilitated so many workshops for ICPAU. And today we are lucky to have him as our presenter for this engagement seminar. He's already on call, and I think we can start straight away. Thank you. Nicholas, you can start.
Thank you, Deborah, Madam Moderator, CPA. Just to help me confirm that I'm audible, you can hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Members, the introduction has already been made. You allow me with straightforward go to to what has brought us today. This is the content or the brief of what I intend to walk you through in the 2-hour session that we have today. Being a student engagement seminar, webinar, remember we are mainly trying to help ourselves to appreciate what is expected in terms of paper 17. I know most of you must be watching out and trying to work hard to ensure that you finish these papers, whatever you're doing, so that you don't get to be affected by the new syllabus that has already been rolled out and the communications made that effective next year. So of course, this one is also, I won't talk about the syllabus, that would be a different session, but just for your information, what I intend to walk you through are more of the practical aspects that normally challenges the students, which the examiner believes that if the students understood what is required, then almost every student should be passing if at all you understand what is required. I happen to be focusing on the most recent sitting, September 2022, for mainly in terms of the remarks that were given by the examiners, which if you take them into consideration, you're guaranteed that the next sitting, not only even for this audit, but even for other papers, most of these areas are actually applicable in all other papers. I've just selected a few past papers, which I would want us to make reference to in respect to the areas that I'm going to be highlighting. And of course, inclusive of it is the recent one of September 2022, which I'll make more reference to it so that we understand exactly what is required of us. Starting with the overall objective of the paper, as you are aware, in terms of academic setting, the moment you're not sure of the outcome of the paper, it becomes hard actually to read and you understand or to appreciate what is expected of you from the examiner. The aim, which is mainly about consolidating the knowledge and you understand the process in terms of executing and finalizing an audit. But more importantly, given the fact that this is level 3 and you're at almost at the completion of the course, it's more on the side of the finalization of the audit for you, since you'd be more or less as a graduate. If you went outside there to practice accounting, you actually appreciate and understand what is expected of you as a practicing accountant. And more importantly, we do audit in accordance with international standards on auditing and the Ugandan regulatory framework. It's one key area that you have to appreciate. How is that knowledge that you got from the previous papers is actually applied for purposes of complying with auditing standards? The assessment, of course, the institute tests the knowledge, the comprehension, the application, the analysis, and more importantly, can you exercise and evaluate the auditing and other assurance principles to which, after the graduation, you expected to apply if at all you happen to major into the accounting services. The setting of the paper, I know you must be in the know, but just for recap, Section A having 1 question and is 100% compulsory, carrying 50 marks. And of course, you should know what it means if 1 question has 50 marks and is compulsory. The Section B has 4 questions, you choose 2, each having 25 marks, so that it adds up to the 50. And then you score 100% in case you have attempted all the 2 questions plus the first compulsory number. Still, before we go into the details, it is always more important to do some bit of analysis, especially one of the areas, in fact, that challenges auditors under this paper is what we call analytical procedures. So it would not be appropriate to take you through without even having a practical analysis. An analysis, of course, is simple, trying to understand in the past, especially for the most recent papers, how have the students been passing? How have the students been failing? As you can see, the recent one, which is September 2022, only 22.6 passed and 77.39 failed. Similarly, in terms of the earlier sitting of June, 12% had only passed, 87 had failed. If you check, I think in March, which has 67% pass rate, from my analysis of even all the other previous years, it is one of the highly passed rates that we have ever had in terms of effective since 2016, when the syllabus was changed and the setting of this paper became unique based on the current syllabus. We had 67% and 32 had failed, and that was more or less the only time when those who passed were more than those who failed. But as you can see, in December 2021, in October 2021, averagely, out of 100, 20 only passes. Or if I say out of 10, 2 passes. The reason why they fail as the majority, please take note of what I'm going to take you through. It basically contributes to the reasons why the majority fail this paper. The syllabus, I won't go much into the details. You already know it, and it's partly what we are supposed to be covering. You allow me, I go straight to the critical area all of us, we are supposed to be understanding. These remarks I'm starting with are purely picked from the recent sitting of September 2022. And you will appreciate that 100% they contribute to the reason why the 79%, sorry, the 73% actually failed and only a few passed. So if you don't want to increase the statistics of those who are failing, these are not my remarks. They are remarks from the examiner. I know you have access, or some of you must have already gone through them. You'll confirm that they are the actual remarks or the reasons why the examiner indicated why students actually have been failing and actually did fail September 2022 sitting. The critical one he started with was about the knowledge gaps, and the areas based on the setting of the paper. There are mainly 4 areas identified to which the examiner indicated students had some knowledge gap in terms of risk assessment for an engagement. They had a bit of knowledge gap in respect to planning procedures. That is now under the side of execution, which implies that you ought even be using the knowledge of paper 12 for purposes of planning procedures, audit test or procedures. Also the knowledge that is more inclined to the one you get when you're studying paper 12, and then other assurance engagements, which of course, as part of the nature of the paper, is we are supposed to understand assurance and other assurance engagements. And it happened to have been exhibited that most students actually could not understand the difference between assurance services and non-assurance services. The other key remark that the examiner gave was an inability to give sufficient required points. This is for your understanding that it's a little bit tricky to always know how many points, how many answers are needed in respect to a specific question. So when the remark says unable to give sufficient required points, my understanding of how to address such an issue is that of course, you apply your professional judgment depending on the number of marks that are awarded to a specific question. You give as many points as possible. If a question is carrying like 10 marks, minimally, don't give less than 5 points, because to a greater extent that each point can carry more than 2 marks. So if there are 10 marks, maximum, in most cases where each point can carry 2 marks, there you expect to be having 5 correct points. And now remember, it doesn't mean that when you give 5 points, 100% going to be marked correct by the examiner. So what does it mean? The more the points you give, the higher the chances that you will maintain a few more points that will not be marked wrong, and at the end of it, you score above average. But the fewer the points you give, then you subject yourself to a risk that 1 or 2 points are the ones that are going to be marked correct. And in the end, you fail to meet the minimum number of points that the examiner needs for you even to reach a half of the marks that are to be awarded on that specific point. The other remarks that were given in respect to the September 2022 sitting, the inadequate preparation and being not ready, as I missed by the exact statement, and it was made in the remarks that the students were not ready for the September 2022 sitting, yet it was long way over after the COVID-19. If it was in the prior year where we had just gotten out of COVID, I would have easily appreciated that point. But now imagine the examiner is still saying students seem not to have been ready for the sitting. What does it imply? That the nature of the points that are given, the way the students are answering, clearly shows a lot of gaps in respect to understanding of what is required. And that's why it ends up in such a remark of saying that the students were not ready for the sitting. So please, if you intend to do any paper, prepare in advance, revise as much as you can, and by default, the examiners, the moment they get to appreciate that you have something that makes sense, you're on a higher chance that you're going to be given some marks. As I'm aware, I hear that most of the examiners, of course, trying to be lenient, trying to look for a student at least who has put in more efforts, who is trying to understand what is required. So it's not that the examiners are so strict, but by the time the examiner is saying a student is not ready, it means that actually you're completely so off to the extent that to whatever extent the examiner is lenient and would want even to help you, even if he or she knew that you're Nicholas and he knows you, which of course is impossible that he can never know, but even if it was to be that he knows that this is Nicholas, it still remains impossible. The nature of how I would have answered, the way I would have trying to approach the questions, it becomes impossible for him or her to give me a mark. So that's the part that I need to emphasize. Purposes of you passing, make sure you have adequate preparations, and by default should be in position to pass. The inability to build on paper 12 and paper 13 knowledge, that's in respect to the more of the advanced financial reporting, or basically anything about financial reporting, and at the same time the audit ethics and entrepreneurship paper 12, which feeds into this audit and assurance services. Why is this such a remark? I had already indicated that one of the gaps that the examiner indicated was about planning procedures, audit procedures, or audit tests. We understand much of the requirements for the planning procedures, the risk assessment, the substantive procedures at paper 12. The other element, which I think I'm here to emphasize more on it, is in respect to the requirements of international financial reporting standards, which partly in terms of the paper had some references to them, but the students were not in position to understand how such requirements of the standards are actually applicable. So it is a requirement for you, if you're to pass, to keep abreast of the knowledge you have gotten from the previous papers, especially based on the high lack of the papers. As you are aware, based on the structure of the course, one paper fits into until you reach the last level where you'll be consolidating the knowledge that you have gotten from all other papers. Otherwise, the most important paper here for paper 17 is paper 12. If you miss out, or if you just went through paper 12 for purposes of passing, you're not understanding what is actually needed. Trust me, in terms of the lectures of paper 17, they will not go back into the details. They will expect that you already know the basics. Now here they get into the technicalities of paper 17, and now here comes that the examiner already knows that most of the students were actually falling short of the knowledge for paper 12. Then limited knowledge on government bonds and treasury bills. It's here because the paper had, for question 1, it was mainly inclined to the government securities, in particular bonds and treasury bills. And it happens that the examiner could clearly see that most of the students didn't understand what government securities are all about. And worst of it all, since it has an element of complexity in financial reporting, it's linked to the previous point of saying the lack of knowledge in respect to the technical aspects of the IFRSs, given the fact that the government bonds and treasury bills, they are accounted for under IFRS 9, but a few of the students could clearly understand most of the tests or the audit procedures be performed if at all you don't understand the nature of the financial instruments they're about. What I need to emphasize more there is that you need a bit of general knowledge when it comes to this paper, and of course, not only this paper, but also for these other papers. Anyone who had some clue about government bonds and treasury bills, even if you don't know the IFRS aspect of it, it becomes much easier when they're asking, what are the inherent limitations, or what they had as one of the question, inherent risks? It's impossible for you to appreciate the inherent risk when you clearly don't understand what the government bonds are all about. So somebody who has clues about government securities, even if you don't understand the technical aspect of accounting, it becomes easier to define which risks are associated to it inherently. You can clearly tell what assertions, as one of the questions was about, assertion that can be attributed to the government securities. So the more you get exposed to so many things, the better for you to pass some of these papers. For your information, based on my research, the Institute tends to bring questions on current affairs, on up-to-date information across the different industries. So the better you get equipped with knowledge from different industries. Now here it was financial instruments. The next time they can go back into, they say now a real bank, or next time it can be a telecommunication company. Next time it can just be maybe just inventory, but for like a supermarket. What matters is that are you very much covered with different aspects of life, at the same time the business environment, because when you finish like this as a CPA graduate, it does not mean that you're going to be employed in a specific industry. So the Institute needs to train you in a way that any company you join, you have the adequate and the relevant knowledge to clearly do the needful. The other remark that was given is the failure to relate procedures to assertions. This is in respect to a question that was asking about audit procedures to be performed on their government securities, and yet the previous subsection of it had also asked for assertions that are attributed to the financial instruments, in particular government securities. Now, what do we mean? Why are we not relating procedures? In terms of audit procedures, now these are what we call substantive procedures, which are performed to identify any possibility of material misstatement in an account balance or a class of transaction or disclosures in the financial statements. And if it's to be, we only get to be guided, or you easily understand what specific procedures you want to perform based on what we call management assertions. The representations that are made by management in respect to the financial statements they are prepared and reported on. And those are the likes of the completeness, the occurrence, the existence, the rights and obligation, the classification, the presentation and disclosure. Those assertions are the ones that clearly guide and you clearly appreciate what specific procedure do I need to perform. Otherwise, you will not need to do any test unless you are addressing an objective for which the financial statements have been prepared, and those objectives are clearly reflected in form of management assertions. So it would imply that the students here, yes, they would pick like an example of a procedure called sending confirmation letters to Bank of Uganda for the treasury bills or the government bonds the company has invested in. But you're not telling the examiner the confirmation letter that you're asking or that you're going to ask in the course of the audit. Which assertion are you actually trying to test? Then our students would have given another procedure called recomputation of interest that will have accrued on the treasury bond, or sorry, the treasury bill or the government bond. Yes, you recomputed the interest, but what is it? What are you trying to achieve? We normally recompute interest because we want to be sure of the accuracy of the interest or the amortized amount that is being reported by management. So there now the assertion becomes accuracy or measurement of the interest that you've actually, that has been reported on by management. So it's something that you need to be aware of. When you're answering some of these questions, you need to take note whether an answer is independent of another subsection of the topic, or in terms of the question that is needed. Then the other remark that was given, a lack of knowledge on inherent risks. The inherent risks that were asked were in line with also still the government securities. And it's also in line with the earlier remark where they indicated that students had gaps in understanding what what government securities are all about. And that's why I believe they could not clearly understand what inherent risks are attributed or are associated with government securities. Of course, here, it's a combination of two things for my understanding. Do you clearly understand technically the concept of inherent risk? As you are aware, it's a component of an audit risk. As you are aware, there are three components of audit risk: the inherent risk, the control risk, and the detection risk. And of which the inherent, currently based on the revised auditing standards, is now more critical for risk assessment because it clearly justifies that without taking into consideration of controls and regardless of the procedures to be performed by the auditor, could there be any possibility of misstatements in the financial statements, either at an assertion level, of which you actually need to be sure that there are no risk of material misstatements. So here, I believe that some of the students did not clearly even understand what inherent risks are all about. By the same time, for those who understood what an inherent risk is all about, now they were later challenged by the concept of financial instruments, in particular government securities. That's why I indicated that if somebody knows the setup of like government bonds, one of the inherent risk, which is basically inbuilt, that without taking into consideration of those controls, those government bonds will remain misstated, is like the technicality of accounting treatment for those government bonds. The government bonds or the treasury bills qualify to be financial assets. Now, as you're aware, financial assets are accounted for under IFRS 9. IFRS 9 is one of the earliest, believed, of course, to most of the accountants, to be one of the complex accounting standards. So the moment you already know that the government bonds, treasury bills are accounted for under IFRS 9, it automatically already know there is already an inherent risk, because not everybody understands how IFRS 9 is applicable or how is actually complied with when it comes to the aspects of like recognition, measurement, disclosures, and so forth. So that was a bit of, I think, more of technical to the students, and I can understand why most of the students failed that part. It required a number of aspects of the students for him or her to clearly 100% get a mark, if at all he or she is not appreciating the aspect of technical, and at the same time, the concept of inherent risk. The other, it's, I think, in line with what I've already even talked about, the lack of knowledge for the requirements of IFRS 9. It's in line with the same financial instruments. Of course, here what I need to add on is that students, when it comes to the audit, as you are aware that the audit that we are looking at, it's external auditing. And the primary objective of an external auditor, one of the services that we offer that is known to us as external auditors, is that we are independent auditors who examine the company's books of accounts and express an independent opinion as to whether those financial statements are true and fair, or they are free from material misstatements in accordance with any applicable reporting framework. And the most important ones, which is the common one across, cutting across the private sector, even the government, the current reporting framework has more of the principles that are related to the ones of IFRSs. The critical reporting framework is International Financial Reporting Standards. So as an auditor, if you're going to be reviewing and you want to confirm the other management assertions to which management has prepared and presented those financial statements, that they are complete, they are accurate, the transactions are properly measured, the assets do exist, you have rights over those assets, if there are liabilities, there is an obligation to be met. How do you expect to verify such representations in accordance with IFRS when you actually don't understand what IFRS is all about? In summary, if right now you intend to do the paper 17, but you're still struggling with the paper 13s and these other related papers in respect to the financial reporting, I would advise that you first get done with the reporting, you master it, you come to audit. Because you need to agree with me, you cannot audit what you don't know. And that's what the examiner was trying to emphasize. And what normally makes it tricky for this paper is when now the examiner brings more of those questions that require the technical knowledge of financial reporting. So you find the students have just come thinking that they are going to do only audit aspect. The audit that is required here is dependent on the financial reporting knowledge. Without the clear knowledge of financial reporting, there's no way you can become a smart auditor or a good auditor. So that's my career guidance I can give for those who are yet to make selections. In case you're yet to think of doing the paper, but you just decided to attend the session, please first get done with the reporting and then come into for the audit, or do them at the same time. Otherwise, starting with audit, then later you come to the reporting. Okay, you can still pass if at all your judges are working well for you and becomes a miracle. Otherwise, it may be a real hard for you to pass audit when you lack knowledge of financial reporting. The other part is the examiner where indicated inability to form the appropriate audit opinion. Of course, now this is the pure audit, which, like I've already indicated, that the primary objective of an independent auditor is to express an independent opinion. Whatever we do, for your information, for those who came in late, I'm a practicing accountant, as in basically an auditor. On a daily basis, I'm always basically looking into the financial statements, and we are thinking of which opinion do we give. Whatever things we do, the procedures we perform, the planning procedures we do, the evidence we gather, the critical element of audit is the opinion that is issued on those financial statements, because financial statements are not ours. What belongs to the auditor is the independent auditor's report, which is basically an average around 2-3 pages. The contents of an audit report, you all need to be aware. If you don't know, please, it's one of the examinable areas. And the critical part of it there is just the opinion that we give. So by the time you're doing this paper and you come for the exams, and you clearly can't understand practically how an auditor can form an opinion, trust me, the examiner should not actually, even if you pass the rest of other contents, you would have wished even to make you fail, or of course he or she cannot, if at all you have passed the rest. But the critical one, which would be desired, is the institute trains you to a greater extent that in case you happen to become an advisor as an independent auditor, of course, we only don't do audit after CPA, but in case you to become a practicing accountant, and imagine you do not know how to form an opinion. So what type of opinions are you going to be issuing? What advice are you going to be giving to the clients in respect to the different aspects of financial reporting and auditing? So I'm emphasizing this because I feel like I've analyzed the past sittings. The aspect of audit reporting, audit opinion is just one of the topics in the syllabus, but it happens to be coming more often. And I think it's because the critical element of an auditor, given the fact that the paper is titled audit, you must be understanding how to form an appropriate opinion. And for you to form an appropriate opinion, One of the critical pieces that you need is, do you clearly differentiate the different audit standards that we have? What is required? And of course, lastly, the specific standards that guide in forming an opinion, of which, we have different opinions. The unqualified with no even emphasis of matter, and that is ISA 700 revised. And then you may still have unqualified, but then you have an additional paragraph to emphasize something which has no impact on the opinion. Then you may have what we call the modified opinion, implying that there are some misstatements, the financial statements that you'd want to report on, which can either become a qualified with except for opinion, or it is a modified, an adverse opinion, or it's a disclaimer of opinion. The moment you do not differentiate the different circumstances, remember, like for under paper 12, for purposes of differentiating what's the difference between this paper and then the other one for paper 12. The same topics appear in both papers. The other side, the greater extent, most of the questions are likely to be the theory bit of it. Under what circumstances can unqualified opinion be issued by an independent auditor? Under what circumstances can an emphasis of matter paragraph be given by an auditor? And then just say, in case there is a going concern, in case there is a material uncertainty, in case there is non-compliance or the violation of laws, well and good. But now here, when it comes to the paper 17, you're tricked in a way that those circumstances are brought in the form of a scenario. Now it's you to evaluate those scenarios or those circumstances, and then you confirm that if you were the auditor, based on the availed circumstances, which type of opinion needs to be given. Like for this previous sitting of September 2022, the part that I'm going to focus on, I think I will still highlight on it again, was about inventory and the PPE that had been destroyed by floods. And they were asking, based on those prevailing circumstances vis-a-vis the associated amounts, which type of opinion would be given. So it implies that they have already given the circumstances. You only need to confirm as an auditor, because here you're finishing as a CPA graduate who is worthy, knowledgeable enough that if you're employed by an audit firm and you're an audit manager, you are a partner, you're in a position to give an appropriate opinion. So let's focus much on that, both for the purposes of passing exams and of course at the same time for your practice, for those who want to join us in audit. The other critical one that the examiner indicated is lack of knowledge on international standards on auditing. The ISAs have already indicated. And the ones I'm capturing here are amongst of those that they were part of the same paper. There's some bit of sampling. There's an element that required you to apply the evaluation of material misstatements, especially for at the time of making an opinion. You needed to first understand what impact of misstatements that have been indicated, and then to see which type of opinion needs to be given. The 705, that's now basically to know whether you're going to give a modified opinion or not. There's some information about subsequent events, management rate of representation, about the auditor's responsibility in respect to the fraud, assurance engagements other than the audit and review of historical financial statements, the agreed upon procedure, which we will call the other related services, and then some bit of international standards on quality control, which currently going to be international standards on quality management that is going to be effective next month, average 1 month from now. It's going to be 15th December. To which we need to understand how auditors run their firms to ensure that the highest quality or the minimum quality is achieved. Those were the critical ones, but I will wrap them up with what I picked out that I would call the instance of misfiring. It's also more of a remark that the examiner gave, but I want to focus on it and clearly highlight, and it's one of my enjoyable aspects that whenever I wish to guide someone as a student, I always want to remind them that you better earn fewer marks because you're careful, because you have you're trying to be smart, than scoring 0% on a number because of a number of things. And that's what now I'm referring to as misfiring. And misfiring is a common instance amongst of the students, and I know most of those are the ones who fail. If any of you guys have ever been in an exam, you find yourself, you're like halfway of a script or halfway of a page, or you're done with a page and realize that actually you seem to be answering a different question, or what you're giving is irrelevant, and you do the crossing. Those are the instances I'm referring to. Imagine you did not even identify that it's a wrong number, or it's wrong, there are wrong answers. You went ahead and you submitted, but the examiner comes and checks and realizes that you're 100% off. Those instances make it worse for students. And it's more common based on the different exam remarks I've examined for this paper. As you're aware, when you check the institute's website, you have the different settings where they have given marking guides or the solutions, at the same time the remarks. I've realized that's one of the common things that students always misfire. What does it mean? Whatever answers they would have given, they score 0%, either on a whole number or part of the number. And the moment you're scoring 0 as part of a number, you're increasing your chances of never reaching close to 50%. And I think that's why the percentages are always so miserable, that they are in 10s or 20s for those who pass, and those who fail are in 80s and 70s. So what are the examples I picked out in the past sitting, which I still believe they are more common in the past papers, not only for this immediate one, but here they are more in particular to the actual questions of this September 2022 sitting. The first one is that some students discussed business risks instead of inherent risks. I know if you're in this call, by default, you know the difference between business risks and audit risks. So the question was asking for inherent risks, but most of the students instead gave business risks. The moment the examiner already sees that the points you're giving are inclined to business risks, by the way, I still believe it may even make it worse. If the first 2 points are business risks, you may find that the third or fourth is an inherent risk, but you've already annoyed the examiner, and he may even not be willing to read the rest of other points. But nonetheless, the examiners have the obligation, and I know they do, those who mark, to read each and everything you've wrote. But for your information, the examiner confirmed that all the points for some of the specific students, they would give only business risk and nothing at all talking about inherent risks. Remember, in fact, business risks are normally compared to the audit risk, which is a combination of inherent, control, and detection. And as already explained, for purposes of adding value to you guys who have attended, the difference between audit risk in simple terms, the audit risk is focusing on the possibility of misstatements in the financial statements. Unlike business risk, it is not directly linked to the financial statements. The business risk, that is a chance that the organization or the entity that you're auditing may actually fail to achieve its intended objective. So the business risk is not directly linked to the financial statements as compared to the audit risk. That's why when they are asking for inherent risk, it is linked to the financial instruments, government securities, whose misstatement directly affect the opinion as to whether the financial statements are materially misstated or not. But for a business risk, which in the next point, in the third point, I'm giving some of the general risks that the students gave, which you would call like general risks. They talked about COVID-19, river flooding. How does river flooding directly? Yes, I know it made some of the properties damaged and what, but does not mean that a flooding of the river directly affects the financial statements or the remnants of the financial statements. So that is one part that students, you need to understand technical concepts of these papers that, and as you may be in the know, in the past, they have asked business risk as an independent question. But you may find also at the time when they ask in business risk, that's when now some students are instead giving inherent risks. So it's high time students to understand before you start answering, be careful. First, be sure so that the examiner does not believe you have interchanged the points of a specific concept for another concept. Similarly, on the second point, they were asking for the inherent risks for government securities. But surprisingly, the students, yes, identified risks, but they have no any relationship at all with government securities. It's more or less the same to the next point of reproducing general risks. Yet the inherent risks that were asked were for government securities. But now students were saying river flooding, COVID-19, credit risk, foreign exchange. Yet the foreign exchange risk you're talking about, in the scenario, they not quote that those government bonds, the treasury bills were in foreign currency. So for you start saying that there will be a risk that those government securities may not be appropriately measured in accordance with maybe IS 21. So please make sure before you start answering, be sure the point that you're going to give, customize it to the actual requirement. And if they are linked to a specific element of the financial statements, only contain yourself to that. Because I've seen in the past other remarks or the previous sittings, they're asking like procedures for inventory, but the students is giving some procedures that even relate to like to the pay, to directed to like receivable or revenue, that is even completely so opposite. Then the other point was interchanging the explanation of assurance and non-assurance services. In the question, there was a part that required some details about non-assurance services and assurance services. There are specific students who, in fact, under assurance, they explained it in the form of non-assurance. Then under non-assurance, instead, they talked about assurance. So it's high time you get to appreciate. And when you read the different audit standards is when you clearly know what's the difference between the two, and you can easily differentiate the two concepts of assurance and non-assurance. Then the other point was about misquoting the contents of an audit report vis-a-vis the agreed upon procedure engagement. In the question, what had been examined was the contents or the structure or the template for agreed upon procedure in line with international standards on related services, 4400. And then here the students, because yes, they know it was all about audit report, they think it's a normal audit report, which is covered by ISA 700. where you'd have either unqualified, there are those different opinions that I talked about. Yet this one is completely so unique. And therefore, students will now start to give those components, the contents of like the title, the audit opinion, the management responsibility, the director's responsibility, other legal and requirements, the other responsibility, the other information, the key audit matters, of which they are completely off when it comes to that nature of the engagement that is called agreed upon procedure. And that's what now means that you as students, you need to be reading standards by standards and clearly differentiate how is one standard different from another, or in terms of the reports that are made by the auditor, how are they different from another? And I think I predict the new syllabus will even make it more clearer or easier from a practical perspective that the nature of the questions, which right now students are still struggling on, and the institute is trying to focus on, is that as students, we are saying, in case you finish this paper of audit and assurance, now it's going to be called the practical. Let me just give one insight that one of the titles in the terms in the paper has an aspect of practice or practical. What does it mean? You cannot finish CPA course and one of the paper you did is like currently called audit and assurance services, but you're going to do one of the assignment and you're now decided to say this is an agreed upon procedure, and you clearly don't know even how the nature of the report is going to be given. So for your information, still with the next sitting that you're yet to, or even if you want to defer and you wait for the new syllabus, the earlier the better, that in due course of the preparations, focus on understanding audit from the practical perspective, not for cram work purposes. The cram work can save you more under paper 12, if at all you can, but not necessarily here under paper 17, which is more to a greater extent practical, given the fact that we expect that you're more or less of an audit manager, you're more or less of a director, you're a partner who clearly is going to be reporting on an assignment that you executed as an auditor. Then the other part that the examiner indicated was misquoting the procedures for forensic audit, and instead of audit procedures that were required by the standard audit standards that deals with the auditor's responsibility in respect to the fraud of material misstatement due to, sorry, the risk of material misstatement due to fraud or an error. So here students thought that it's the other general topic of forensic audit. So they focused on forensic audit. They gave the procedures for forensic audit, yet the question needed in particular the audit procedure for external audit, but in line with the ISA 240. Okay, so those are the ones that I picked as per the most recent sitting of September. But nonetheless, I'm adding on to you, which I think they might be still more similar. The other remarks that had been given in the past, not necessarily for this September 2022, and I know some of them are related and others are yet to be committed by you if I thought you don't take note from today moving forward. Limited knowledge on analytical reviews. Here what I refer to as one of the substantive procedures that are performed, both substantive and planning, we call them analytics. And in the past, the examiner has realized that students are falling short of understanding how analytical procedures are performed. The likes of, for your information, that's why we have the different types of analytics, like the ratio analysis. You do ratios to appreciate the plausible relationship between the different balances of financial information. You can do a reasonableness test to appreciate whether things are making sense or not. You can apply computer or techniques or what we call data mining to analyze or interrogate the client's data. You can do a trend analysis, which has different forms, either by comparing like the prior year and the current year to clear the tail based on your other non-financial information, whether the movement makes sense or not. You can do like the comparison with industry by industry, or within the same the same company for the different departments. So many of the trend analysis that you can do. Now, it happens that students are still yet to understand how analytical procedures are performed. Members, remember, as I talk such, as I go through those remarks, for your information, it means that the examiner is likely to still come back with similar questions, because he already knows that students are yet to understand such areas. I think that's the reason I've met some students who normally say, this institute wants to make money, they make us fail. Not at all. I'm already giving you tips based on the examiner, what he's saying, the students, they are failing to understand. And these remarks are issued by the institute, are open to everyone. But some of you, you do not want to go through the remarks. That's why even the institute is going to arrange for the student webinars. Maybe we still go back and work them through for you guys. For your information, some of us, one of the reasons why I used to pass was because of such information. Before I even think of sitting for a paper, I'll have to first go into the archives of the institute to get to understand what is all the information that they have ever issued in respect to a certain paper, and more in particular, the one that concerns the question approach, the setting of the question, the focus of the paper, the challenges that are normally faced by the students, in summary, the examiner's remarks or the past solutions if they are there. So what I'm talking about is, for those who have not been using this technique, the earlier the better. So when I'm going through these remarks, I'm trying to give you a tip that if you go back and make sure that these past mistakes that have been committed by the previous students, for you trying to address them, then you're guaranteed of passing. I hope you're getting my point. So don't just listen to me anyhow. For you, keep taking note and ensure that whatever remarks that are being said here, like the one I've just finished, that limited knowledge on analytical reviews, go back and ensure you master the topic of analytical procedures, so that you never know, in the next sitting, the question will come on analytical procedures. The next one now is initial POAS question analysis and selection. That's a general one, where the students do not clearly understand which one is a more favorable question that is that can easily be passed as compared to the other. Of course, this comes to the section B, where you have 4 questions and you select 2. It's not applicable to question 1, you have no choice. For question 1, the only part that is applicable is the first part of the point of analysis. Have you analyzed, have you reread the question, the case study, and understood exactly what is needed? Then point number 3, not customizing answers to the scenario. I've already hinted on this. You need to appreciate that the points you give, if at all it is linked to the case study, don't give general points. Yes, if it's just a summarized technical point based on what you have read from the case study, then at the time of explaining, then go and make sure you link to which paragraph, which specific word did you base on for it to summarize a technical point that you have actually given. But otherwise, it's even more advisable you pick the actual terminologies in the case study, but then of course you don't now the explanation use the same paragraphs. You now explain those terminologies using other synonyms or using other terms to clearly indicate that you have understood what the examiner had included in the case study, and you picked it as an actual point. For instance, if we are talking about the same scenario that they give in the last session, and it's about the inherent risks that I've talked about. Now they were asking about inherent risks for the financial instruments. So there, because they had indicated that the company complies with international financial reporting standards. Now, for you, don't just start saying the complex financial report applicable financial reporting framework. No, you already know what is applicable. Just say, as per paragraph this and this, if at all you can, and if you think it's not going to be so long, that the company complies with IFRS, and therefore it is inherently that the government bonds and treasury bills may not be appropriately recognized in accordance with IFRS 9. And you finish. Because the examiner already knows that you have referenced to the case study because the guys are complying with IFRS. Imagine the next case study is like on a bank. Then, and they have even told you that the bank is supposed to be complying with Financial Institutions Act. And then for you start referring to Companies Act only. Yes, a bank complies to both Companies Act and Financial Institutions Act. At the same time, the IFRSs and other BOU guidelines. The issue is that you find that you've given all the points, like 10 of them, but you have not referenced any of them to like Financial Institutions Act. Then you're completely off. There is a current standard that is new of IFRS 17 for insurance contracts. Imagine they have brought a case study in respect to the insurance company. And neither of all the points that you've given, nor the reference is trying to make to the case study have an aspect of the insurance sector or the relevant standards that are applicable to the insurance sector. So you have to customize your points to the scenario that is being given. Then repeating or duplicating points, where most students would have forgotten that the first point was about like an assertion for completeness. Then under like point number 5, you still bring a point, though not directly as a completeness, but the explanation still refers to completeness as an assertion. That will not be marked correct, given the fact that it will be a duplication. A poor question and answering approach. You guys need to understand how do we approach the questions, how is the answers expected to be given, especially like the other technique when I talked about of forming an opinion. If they have said form an opinion, what is expected? Have you checked the previous marking guides and for a similar question to see how the examiner actually approached such a question of forming an opinion? Does it require the whole content of an audit report to start with the title, the opinion, basis of opinion, key audit matters? Do you need all those? Because they have just said form an opinion. So here it's a matter of understanding based on for those who go through the teaching institutions, they expect to help you appreciate the different questions, how they are supposed to be answered. Then in terms of attempting all the required numbers or sections, it's always also another issue. Some students, either because they don't know something at all, but not entirely the whole number. Out of 4 numbers in section B, how can you only do 1 number? It was supposed to be 2 numbers. So imagine you've done 2 numbers, sort of 1 number from section B. Section 1 is the other one with 50 marks. But part of the sections of question 1, you even left them blank. How do you ever expect to ever reach 50? Next to impossible. So attempt as many, of course, all the required numbers, but in particular, when it comes to the question, if it has 5 parts, try as much as possible that all the parts you've attempted and answered them. Then failure to cover the entire syllabus in preparation, that's what has already been noted at the start. It is inherent and it is being demonstrated in the past remarks that I reviewed that most students actually do not cover the entire syllabus that is under the scope of paper 17. Failure to cover recent developments in audit. This is when the examiner tries now to test students where they are abreast of the new developments in the audit industry. And I think like the earlier sitting, the one I indicated, the question on AU, the related service of agreed upon procedure, it's basically one of the standards that was recently updated based on some of the specific contents. So I think that was the whole aspect. And I think another aspect was I saw an element of ESG, the environmental, social, and governance aspects, which is one of now in addition to the concept of sustainability, the new terminology on the board, both in terms of auditing and accounting, and basically even the society that you need to actually be aware of. So are you aware of those recent developments? In terms of, even if it's the old standard, but it has been revised, are you aware of what has actually been revised? I talked about, like, on the quality control, there's the one that I said it's going to be effective immediately 1 month from now, which is 15th December 2022. Have you taken note of, and are you going to actually go and ensure that you get to understand the differences between ISQC 1 and ISQM 1? Focus on the changes, then at the same time, in absolute terms, clearly understand the whole standard, because they may either focus on the new changes, or they are still looking at the entire standard, but they expect you to answer from the perspective of a new standard called ISQM 1. Trust me, not only even under audit, but from the other different perspectives, take note of these new developments. There are more points of emphasis and the focus of the examiners, given the fact that the institute is trying to ensure that students that graduate are up to date. We don't want to train guys in the 21st in this era, and then somebody is still thinking in a PO box era. That is completely off. So that's why you need to know everything that is being examined. We're trying as an institute, based on what I've read in their mandate and the way they do their things, to ensure that they pass the students that are actually up to date from all the different perspectives. So for purposes of passing also the audit paper, it's a guarantee that you need to get to understand the recent developments. Then the other part, a failure to number the questions or sections attempted. I think it's just a simple one. I wish if I knew whoever was not numbering or just indicating which sections have been attempted. I hear that even students fail even to put their details on the scripts in terms of registration number or what. Now, let me not go into the details, but trust me, if you're to fail, by default, just because the examiner has just gotten mad with you, that you're lacking those basic skills in terms of how to answer, you will not be blaming such an examiner. But of course, I know you can't fail because you have not numbered, but it can contribute to your failure, especially where the examiner is confused of what exact requirement of the questions you're actually looking at. Then the other gaps that have always been noted in the past, issues of materiality, I think is critical. The other point I emphasized for forming an opinion, it is also requires knowledge of materiality. The moment you don't understand the concept of materiality, it becomes hard for you to clearly actually know what type of opinion is given. Watch out, I'm going to give a quiz for this specific part. I test if you guys clearly understand this subtopic of materiality. At the same time, opinion of forming an opinion. Similarly, it's what I've already talked about for opinions and circumstances, accounting standards and reporting frameworks, IFRSs, the IPSASs for the government sector, the auditing standards where we have the ISAs, the international standards on related services, the international standards for supreme audit institutions that are issued by INTOSAI, and so forth. Now, those are the different areas that the examiners in the past, I'm not sure if it's one examiner or there are many, but I reviewed the different remarks for the different sittings, and those are a number of the areas they are saying why students are failing. And why am I talking about them? Is for you to take note, you address them. If you do, just go confidently knowing that you have a 50% plus. And for you just even start the preparations in advance for having passed the paper. But if you don't take note of them, then I will see you next year still under the new syllabus. But God forbid, not for any of guys who are here on the call. The other relevant tips that I believe I need to pass on to you, for you to take note that in addition to those examiners' remarks that you need to take note, please always ensure that you have gone through the entire, you have analyzed the syllabus, appreciate the different contents of the topics in the syllabus. The examiner has a tendency of picking some of the areas that had never been examined, but they are part of the syllabus. Then you find students saying, the examiner is setting beyond the syllabus. We have never seen such a question. It is you who failed to analyze the syllabus and confirm that some of the areas on the syllabus, you had not read them. So therefore, before you go in for exams, go through the syllabus. If the notes that you're using for revision do not cover everything as per the syllabus, look out for your friends to get the materials that cover all the areas that are part of the syllabus. Otherwise, if you do it, then it's a guaranteed pass. But if not, high chances you may form part of the statistics for the higher failure rate. Analysis of failure and pass rates, I've already gone through it. It gives you insights of whether the paper is simple or hard. I still believe by knowing the statistics of what percentage people fail, what percentage of students pass, it confirms. Yes, for you may think the paper is theory, like now this one of audit and assurance. It's a great extent theory. Even the part that is quantitative is just in form of analysis, but still more of the theory aspect. But how comes the pass rate is always in 20s, 10s? Have you understood why? But if you just feel like, it's just a theory paper, it's not a big deal, and you do not analyze to know that most students fail, so that you go back and design strategies for you, how do you pass? Then you end up failing because you actually weren't aware of the efforts that are needed for the paper you're going to sit for. Get the right reading materials. I've already indicated about that. It's guided by the syllabus that you're reading. Even if you're under any teaching institution, be careful of the notes that you're having. Are they covering the entire syllabus? The institute has the study kits. Though I'm not very sure if they 100% cover in the details of the entire syllabus. If yes, then make sure that everything under the study kit, you have mastered it, because trust me, the examiners or the setters of the papers that you're going to sit, they pick the question from the same study kits. If it's not a study kit, remember the institute tells you which ones are the reading materials, which ones are the reference books you're supposed to be looking up to. Amongst of the reading materials, they tell you these international standards on auditing, the ISAs. They tell you go and read the financial reporting standards. If it's in respect to like the public sector, go and read the Public Financial Management Act. Have you read all the relevant reading materials that the institute has referred to for a specific paper? The notes you're having, the reading materials you're having, do they cover everything that is needed? If yes, you're sorted. But if not, hey, I will not add anything there. It is you to know what will happen to you. Then appreciate your personal strengths and weaknesses. Like for this paper, I've already indicated that it's theory. But what you may need to remember is that it's more of a practical perspective, that the examiner assumes that the students of paper 17 should be more of the real practitioners, because you're going to see they are saying, as an audit manager, as an audit director, as a partner, advise this. What does it mean? If you clearly don't know what partners in audit firms do, if you clearly don't know what audit managers do, then I pity you. So implying that even in due course of the lectures, in due course of the revisions, as you read, as you prepare yourself, for you may think it's theory, but if you don't have some practical experience in audit, then you need to rank yourself with a higher weakness, given the fact that the paper requires more of the practical audit knowledge. As therefore, you need to give in more efforts. As compared, like to me, what now who is doing audit, if I happen to be doing another course that has a paper of audit, there in terms of the strength and weakness, I'll be like, this one I'm sorted. I have a higher strength than the weaknesses. I hope you guys get me what I mean. The next time you're going to be doing another paper called like taxation. Now you find that for you have never even dealt with any matter relating to tax. What does it mean? You need to actually up your game to meet the other person who's on a daily basis is always interfacing with tax matters. The other one will be more advantageous than you. But for him, if it's an issue of for these papers like advanced, sort of like corporate finance management, maybe you're the investment analyst. Based on your job, for you already understand issues of corporate finance. And therefore, you have a high advantage, that is a strength to you, but the other guy who's a taxman or an auditor, he needs now for him to put in more effort in the financial management as compared to you who is doing financial management, where based on your role, it's your more or less of your daily routine work. So that's what I'm trying to imply. And plays the biggest role of not undermining a specific paper because you clearly don't know where is your strength, where are your weaknesses. If you know that you have high weaknesses, then prepare as much as possible. Go in for classes, ensure you do so much of the revisions. Some of us, we didn't even go to classes. I only went to class for one paper. Why? I did that analysis before I started the course. And I had to be sure, where are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? And I felt like my strengths were still on a higher note to the extent that I never needed to attend some of to attend classes for the papers. But you have to be careful. Doing that analysis of the strengths and weaknesses is a personal initiative, and it's you who knows yourself. No one else should deceive you that, oh man, you're so good in this. You know yourself, who you are, and you only analyze the paper, understand how the paper, what it needs, what it is needed, and confirm whether you need to put in more efforts or not. Then consider external factors. It's critical. The guys may think these are just a general jazz, but it's worthwhile. I've seen a number of guys messing up because they underestimated the nature of the work they do, the nature of the family needs, and at the end of it, in the last minute, a guy fails the paper because he could not concentrate because of some of these external factors. And now, why do I say this? If you already know that the nature of the work is so demanding, then you rather now focus on attending classes whenever you have a chance, given the fact that you may not have enough time to do personal revision. As compared to another person who feels like he has the whole time of himself, and therefore you may not need to go in for classes. So all these matter a lot in terms of how to make decisions, which feeds into passing or failing. Timely decision to attend classes or not. It's one of the critical parts that I used to lecture once in a while. And you're somewhere, like right now, by the way, we are mid of November. The exams are next month, but you find that some students have just started lectures. of the papers they intend to sit for in next month. If you're one of them, God should guide you in the next sittings to ensure that you make decisions earlier in advance, to the extent that you do not miss out. The worst of it, the tutors will not even deduct any single money of what you're going to pay. They are going to maintain the same amount of money, but you have missed out almost everything. But that's one of the critical parts. I know that the earlier the better, so that you cover everything, you benefit from the knowledge of the classes. Analyzed exam setting structure, I've already hinted on that. Revise and practice as much as you can. It's something that I've also hinted on. Know when and how to revise smartly. Guys, you have to be careful. You find somebody after the whole day is so stressed, but is still forcing himself or herself to revise. What are you revising when you already know that the mind cannot grasp anything? Now, when I talk about how to revise, it does not mean that because you're stressed, it is after work in the evening, you still can't do anything. So imagine if almost some of us whose work is so hectic that I never get any rest from Monday to Monday, Jan to December. So if I say, whenever I'm tired, I'm not going to be revising, then it means that you're always going to be reaching time of exams when you have not read anything. One of the smartest ways to revise is that, like in the evenings, or the time when you feel like you're stressed, it's after work, but you have time, but the mind is not in a position to grasp anything. How do you revise? That's a time when now you're just trying to go and make researches, or trying to gather the materials, trying to just read through the syllabus to understand what are the different topics that may be on your end you may need to focus on. That is also revision, my friends. Making that analysis of going through the different marking guides or the past papers to identify which topics are most commonly examined in respect to this specific paper. That is also revision. And therefore, that's what I'm calling smart revision. So that at any time when, like early in the morning, when you have now secured some few minutes to revise, that's now when you go direct to the actual contents of the paper to understand what you actually need to understand. So you have to be careful when and how to revise. Identify the right group or members to discuss with. Make sure that in due course, especially the exam eve, those one the day before the exams, don't mess up yourself in a way that you confuse yourself, that you reach in exams, even what you had read 1 month ago, even 2 days ago, it evaporates. You have to be sober in a way that the mind is stable to the extent that at least whatever you have read, you're in a position to remember. Lastly, is what I've already been, what I've been emphasizing. Consider examiner's remarks and recommendations, what one needs to be done. So in a few minutes remaining, I'll take you through a few of the reference areas that I picked, and I'll give some remarks in respect to what I think are more critical and why I picked these specific areas. I'm starting with the September 2022, the one which I have, I picked an extract from the same past paper, and I'm focusing on part C and part D of question 1 first. I don't need to read the question. I'm only looking at the requirement where they said, with regard to auditing financial instruments, advise the company on the likely inherent risk associated with the government securities. I think my conversation has been so much larger on this. I've already explained how students, instead of explaining inherent risk, they explained audit risks. They remember they're saying associated with government securities. Some of those who even felt like are giving inherent risk, they were now general without customizing them to the government securities. And then, of course, having told you that not understanding that financial instruments are a little bit technical area that you ought to have understood what government securities are all about, in particular bonds and bills. Part D, which is saying form an audit opinion in relation to the treatment of destroyed property and plant and destroyed stock. Members, this is one of the interesting part. Watch out for this. In a few minutes, I want us we go through. I test your knowledge on materiality and forming the opinion. Then the question 2, part B and C, are related to the assurance services and non-assurance services, which the students were supposed to be giving the differences. And I already told you how guys were interchanging the definition. Part C was talking about agreed upon procedures. Here, I think the examiner was trying to target are students aware of the recent developments in audit, especially with these other standards that not necessarily the auditors do statutory audit, but they also do audits of other engagements. And that's why the examiner indicated that under Part C, some students quoted audit procedures instead of agreed upon procedures. Then on question 3, Part B in particular, it was asking about preparing a template with the key contents of written management representation. Why am I interested in this? Here I'm trying to emphasize that with this paper, it is focusing on, remember the practical approach, the practical understanding of audit. So when they say prepare a template, and I believe you need to watch out more of such questions, which I have always been asked, but students are still not demonstrating the practical understanding of what is being done in audit. So you cannot be trained to be an audit manager, an audit partner, when you don't have any clue about how a rate of representation looks like. So if you're in school, in any teaching institution, you're doing paper 17, for most of the contents of the syllabus, try as much as possible to request guidance on how the reality, how the practical things are done. Not somebody just giving the theory aspect of saying, these are the contents of a management rate of representation. Have a look at it and feel like, oh, yes, they talk about management confirming the accuracy, the completeness of information, the representation like on fraud, availing all the information, unrestricted access to all information. You have the contents, but in terms of what we call professional mark, you guys look at the different solutions. You're always going to see the examiner is saying professional mark was like 2 marks or 3 marks or 1 mark. Those are also important and they are more or less free of charge. A mere putting a title, a date, the address, and you earn 1 mark, it is more important and more easier to be earning such marks than where you're supposed to explain a whole paragraph, even where you're not sure whether the paragraph you explain is right or wrong. So this part B was more trying to bring out the aspect of do students clearly, practically understand what audit partners and audit managers are expected to be doing in the reality of the audit. Not just getting the contents of a rate of representation, which is supposed to be now for like level 2 under the paper 12. Then for June 2022, the part I'm looking at was asking about the steps, the fundamental steps that were required to develop audit objectives for the audit of the financial statements. The key important aspect is by then students confused audit objectives with audit procedures. And that's what you're supposed to be mindful of. An objective is the outcome that you intend to achieve, which is more or less based on their assertions as compared to the procedures, which in particular are the actual tests that you perform. For instance, you want to confirm that the government securities are accurately recorded or they are appropriately presented in the financial statements. That's an objective, which is based on assertion. But then in terms of the tests, we don't just test by saying presentation and disclosure. No, the test is an action, it's in action mode, that you obtain the draft financial statements, obtain like the government bond statement, certificate from Bank of Uganda, review the accounting treatment of the company's accounting policy, check the draft financial statements and confirm if they have been appropriately presented and disclosed in accordance with like IFRS 9 or IFRS 7 requirements. That's now a procedure or a test, so that you're confirming that an objective of presentation, appropriate presentation and disclosure was actually met. Another objective, like on government security, would have been based on assertion for like completeness. Completeness, you're trying to say that all the government bonds and treasury bills that would have been invested in by the company are actually have been recorded and appropriately reported on. So the procedure now, how do I confirm that all the bills and the bonds have been recorded? I would just ask for like the instructions to the Bank of Uganda for them to purchase those bonds and bills. And based on those instructions or the certificates that I would have acquired, I come and check in the ledger to confirm if everything that I've seen have been recorded in the ledger. Then they have become comfortable. If all the certificates that have been issued by Bank of Uganda to the client are reflected in the ledger for the financial instruments. Just as simple as that. I think I can skip this rest. They already factored in the explanations and the remarks that I gave on the different errors and the mistakes that students make in the course of the exams. I'll need now to focus on this. I picked, I think, three paragraphs that are enough for us to understand and be sure if we clearly know the concept of materiality and the concept of forming an audit opinion. Read through briefly, and you tell me. I'll just pose one or two questions, simple ones, and see whether we all understand the concept of materiality and at the same time forming an opinion. I'll later still give more conclusion remarks in respect of practical understanding of how do auditors clearly understand how to give an appropriate audit opinion. I hope you're done with the first. These were just extracts and not the whole case study. Let me read briefly, quickly, that during the year ended 30th June 2021, the senior management informed they informed you as the auditor that they made abnormal surprises in sale of cement for the year ended 30th June 2020. There was a countrywide lockdown in Uganda from March that, because of COVID-19 pandemic, which created a boom in the construction sector. There was a lot of demand for cement, which increased revenue generation for the company, and it increased surplus to 2.5 billion. The board decided to invest the surplus from the boom in the government bonds and treasury bills, in bracket financial instruments related to government securities, worth 1.5 billion from 2020 surplus, which are to be held until maturity. The new audit team for the engagement has only 2 members that are conversant with the audit of financial instruments. Now remember, you're part of the audit team. Here, what you only need to take note, members, if you have where to write the surplus of 2.5 billion, and also write the government bonds and bills worth 1.5 billion. So we move next. Another paragraph The figures to be picked is basically, I can read through and then we pick the figures together. That in 2021, there were very heavy rains in Kasese district. These heavy rains caused the banks of River Nyamwamba to break and flood. Some critical property and equipment of the company worth 120 million was destroyed by the floods. The plant was not greatly affected. Senior management of the company has maintained the value of property and equipment at shillings 305 million, excluding plant, but including equipment destroyed by the floods. I can repeat that statement in summary, that there's a PPE that was destroyed by the floods and it's worth 120 million. That's what you should focus on. The whole PPE was 305, but excluding the other plant that had been destroyed. And they are saying the management went ahead to report the same destroyed PPE the way it was. And now they are saying the management has not been in position to replace the equipment because of the heavy investment that is needed. And now they are saying further engagement with the senior management team has also revealed that there is no active insurance policy cover for the property, plant, and equipment to cover the destroyed property. Property and equipment, excluding plant, forms 20% of the company's total assets. The point here that you need to pick and the actual figures are focused on the value of the PPE that was destroyed, which is 120 million. Hope you're writing somewhere, because it's what I'm going to be asking. We based on one of those figures to make evaluation. Lastly, another paragraph that is critical, that as of 30th June 2021, the company undertook a stock take. They counted stock of cement that was held at the different factory warehouses. And the cement that was held as of 30th June 2021 was shilling 1.1 billion. Then, subsequently on 2nd July 2021, that same warehousing that had the stock worth 0.9 billion got flooded due to another phase of heavy rains and destroyed all the cement in stock. What you need to main the quote here is the value of the stock that was destroyed. It is 0.9 billion. And they're saying the company was unable to recover the loss because the items were insured, but the insurance policy did not cater for natural disasters caused by floods and earthquakes, implying that they did not get any single coin from the insurer, since the insurer does not cover natural disasters. And they are saying the draft financial statements of the company for the year ending 30th June 2021 have disclosed the value of closing stock at shillings 3.3 billion, including the other destroyed stock. Now, the additional information for audit purposes, they are saying as the audit firm, internally, you always set overall materiality for such entities using a range and a basis of pre-tax profit as per it is using the guidance that Institute, the ICPAU gave for practice management purposes, where they indicated that in case you're to set materiality based on pre-tax profit, you have a range of 5 to 10%. But remember, the company, the audit firm, is using a lower range. And in terms of performance materiality, or what we call tolerable error, they are going to set it at 75%. And the requirement is, can you form an opinion for the impact of destroyed PPE and inventory? Now, this is a practical question, which I was emphasizing. It covers both the audit standards, it covers the aspect of materiality, it covers you to understand that by the time you are an audit partner, an audit manager, whom this paper is focusing on, can you ably form an opinion based on these circumstances? Paper 12, they will need to define these circumstances theoretically. But paper 17, you now have them in a theory form, then you practically confirm what type of opinion to be given. I hope the students have a provision for giving answers on the chat. Please write on the chat and tell me in brief for PPE, which is here, the value we quoted 120 million of the destroyed property. Which type of opinion do you think you'd give? Anyone with the right answer? And what is your clear basis? Now, the determination, of course, is you factor in the concept of materiality. The question may be found to reparaphrase it technically. What is now our performance materiality? And what is our overall materiality based on this statement here? The last paragraph. Students please get onto the chat and tell me what's the materiality of this audit firm that is going to set as overall, and at the same time, what is the performance material that is going to set, of which it is the basis that as a student, you consider and say, oh, if the PPE is 120 million as a misstatement, is this misstatement material or immaterial? On my end, I am not in a position to see the chat. Chair, moderator, can you help me confirm if you see if students are typing on the chat?
No, no one has typed so far.
Okay. I know you must be tired, but we are left with 10 minutes and we close. I only wanted to close with this technical part of it. So for the guidance purposes, is that in audit, as you are aware, of course, I know most of you, whoever is on the call, know how the materiality is set. It's the definition is that the information is material if its obscurity, if its omission or misstatement can economically influence the decisions of the primary users of the financial statements, and as such, you would now need to of course advise accordingly as to whether. Oh, okay, is saying the chat is disabled. Sorry, I wasn't aware, but nonetheless, let's just wrap up this. So, in summary, the firm as auditors, since they are using a lower range, and they are saying the range is 5 to 10%, the overall materiality, you get a lower range, which is 5%. And now since they are using pre-tax income, the pre-tax income, I think from the case study, we had it as the other one, which I told you to quote, of, I think it's 2.5 billion, yes. The 2.5 billion. So you get 5% of 2.5 billion. It gives, how much do we get? Let me just, let me get my phone. For everyone at wherever you are, you can do the 0.55% times 2.5 billion. $2.5 billion, it's 125 million. So since it's 125 million, but that's now overall materiality. We have another one, because overall materiality is for the entire financial statements. We go ahead and define materiality at an account level, which is 75% of 125 million. So when you get 75% of 125 million, it gives me 93.75 million as what we call performance materiality. Now, it means that the 120 million for the PPE that is destroyed but has been reported by management, yet in actual sales, based on assertions, one of the assertions is existence. The PPE at report date worth 120 million does not exist because it was destroyed by the floods. So since it's above your performance materiality, it's already it means that the misstatement is material. But remember, your overall misstatement that you would wish to consider for the entire financial statements was 125 million, which is over and above 120. In terms of modification, yes, it's material. The financial statements are material misstatement, but they are not perversely misstated, and therefore you do not need to issue what we call an adverse opinion, given the fact that the misstatement is material. It was how much? 120, but which is above 93 million, but below 125 million of the overall materiality, and therefore you would issue what we call a qualified opinion with except for. What do we mean? That the financial statements are okay, except for the PPE that is misstated by 120 million relating to the PPE that had been destroyed by the floods, but management has continuously reported the same value as if such PPE did exist at report date. That is a summary of how you'd have concluded on PPE. Similarly, you'd have used the same for the inventory to conclude, to see what's a misstatement. But one of the tricks for inventory, the flooding took place after the report date, by the way, for your information. And therefore, there what you need now to apply is the concept of the accounting standard of IS10, the report, the events after the balance sheet date, and confirm if actually it's adjusting or non-adjusting. And if it's adjusting and then they do not adjust, then it affects the opinion. But if it's non-adjusting, then you confirm whether it needs to be disclosed if at all it's material, and if it's immaterial, there's nothing that needs to be disclosed. So it's because we don't have time, that's the high level I can briefly talk about the technicality of how actually is expected of every student at the time we are in exams of paper 17, that you discuss the basis of most of the answers practically, like as if you are a real audit manager, audit director, as an audit partner, in a way of how actually auditors do their work. I think with that, I thank you all. I'll straight through chair since we don't have time. Can I check the question myself directly?
It's okay.
Okay, thanks. I see the question from Josephine. She's saying, does it mean that for all audit procedures, it is to confirm a particular assertion, and this has to be clearly stated in an exam? I think this must have come at the time when I was saying the procedures weren't linked to the assertions. I would say, realistically, yes. Having already noted that substantive procedures are performed to identify any possibility of material misstatements at an assertion level, implying that you're trying to identify if there could be any misstatements in the financial statements at an account level, at a class of transaction, or in the disclosure based on the assertions or what I called representations made by management. So any procedure we perform, yes, it must be linked to an assertion, because the assertion represents indirectly the objective of which the financial statements have been prepared. And therefore, to achieve the having confirmed the representations of management, we must confirm every test that is trying to align to the applicable assertion, because not all assertions are applicable. Okay, and it was only one question from Josephine. I'm not sure if still the Q&A has been disabled.
No, it has not. It has not been disabled, but I'm wondering why people are not posting questions. Maybe the presentation was so well elaborated that everyone is contented.
Oh, I scared them technically.
There is
Sorry,
one.
and apologies if I did so.
No, there is one from Dara. Says, thank you, CPA Nicholas. We've gone through what we need to do to pass. What would you advise on the bulkiness on the paper with the eminent change in syllabus?
Okay. The bulkiness of the paper and with the change in the syllabus. I think my personal take is that you need to find a ways to invest in some time to constantly revise almost on a daily basis, if not daily, every after 1 or 2 days, to the extent that by the time you reach 2 weeks, you've almost covered a greater part. By the time you reach a month left, you've covered everything. Otherwise, trust me, even with the changes in the syllabus, it will even make it worse. Yes, I've had a chance to see the change in the syllabus. Now this paper is going to be, I think, paper 16, and by default implying that there must be some bit of the changes. Having noted that the Institute is always one to keep abreast of the recent developments, they are likely that there will be more new changes to be made, not only in this paper, but in other papers. And what does it mean? The earlier, the better. If you've been sleeping, please, at least first forego the sleep for 2-3 weeks. You clear whatever you need to clear by December so that you don't get affected by the new syllabus.
We have Constantine, who is saying, thanks for the presentation, Nick. Why is it that there's a lot of copy and paste? That is, examiners want some things to appear in an exam as they are in the notes. Is that applying concepts or just more light on it?
Let me see if I'm understanding his point. Why is it that a lot of copy and paste? Examiners want some things to appear in an exam as they are in the notes. Not at all. Constantine, I think I may disagree with you. Not necessarily that that the examiners want the way the things are in the notes, that's how they should be appearing in an exam. Why am I saying that? Which notes even would you be referring to? We have a study kit, and most of the different teaching institutions have their own independent notes. Some of them which even are a little bit different from the study kit. And I've seen the different past papers and also the solutions of the different past papers. Those solutions are not directly picking the actual content of this ICPAU study kit, yet the questions are coming from the study kit. So all in all, to some extent, I don't agree with you, Constantine, that examiners are promoting the cram work of paper 17 and even for other papers, especially for those of advanced ones. The only part which you may think that is copy and paste, which I think I can clarify, and for your information, maybe it also may make sense. Some of these papers like audit, some things require, you may want to call it that bit of copy and paste or cram work. For instance, the standard I was talking about of international standards on quality control 1, which is becoming international standards on quality control, management 1, that talks about the elements of systems of quality management. Now, if a standard is, the question is asking, please explain the components of ISQM 1. Trust me, the way the points are in the standard of saying engagement performance, human resources, grant acceptance and continuous relationship, leadership and governance, when they state the way they are in the standard, the same way if the study kit would have also stated the same points, for such matter, Constantine, don't call that one copy and paste. They're asking about like components of an audit risk, but explain them. And they are in the study kit, they have told you inherent risk, detection risk, and then a control risk. The only part that would differ is customization, that if you stated as inherent risk related to the case study, but the summary of the point can never change from the concept called inherent risk. So all in all, Constantine, please be careful of what are the technical and professional questions that whether you like it or not, you either know or you don't know. And I think I'd forgotten to emphasize it. It's one of the reasons why most of the students are failing, because they want to apply general knowledge, yet most of the areas, for some of the specific areas like for audit, they are a little bit as per the standard. Another aspect I can use an example, I'm sorry to talk much about it, is like the audit report. Like the one we talked about, the AUP, the agreed upon procedure. It's clear the way the contents of an agreed audit report must be in the notes is the same way the examiner expects them the way to have to be in the answer book, which are different from the contents of an audit report of a statutory audit, saying the title, the opinion, basis of opinion, key audit matters, other information, responsibility of management, responsibility of the director, responsibility of auditors. For your information, the moment they have asked for like contents of an audit report, because you know the audit report has a date, and for it's what you start with. Then you say, we know that audit report must be signed by the engagement partner. You bring it at the second point as a content, 100% wrong. Why? The standards already gives you the formula, the process, the flow of information on how the audit report must actually appear, and no one is expected to divert from it. Diversion from it becomes non-compliance with the standards. I hope it makes sense to all of you guys.
Thank you, Nicholas. We have Dara saying, at looking at the practical nature and requirement of the paper, some of us don't work in audit firms, hence naturally disadvantaged. May I pick your mind in regards to how we should professionally present to the examiner?
Okay, thank you, Dara Christian. The way to know how to professionally present to the examiner is simple. Please get all the past solutions, the marking guides that have been issued by the institute, of which is not the institute, is the real examiner, who has clearly given guidance on a number of cases, similar questions that even are yet to be asked, and they are telling you as students, please, this is how you expect to professionally present your answers to the examiner. As simple as that. Solutions to the past sittings are sufficient for you to understand what is the examiner is expecting of you for the practical approach on how answers need to be presented.
Thank you, Nicholas. I think on top of the solutions, he can add on the examiner's comments for those particular sittings that they will download the questions and see what the examiner talked about, how each of the questions were attempted. I don't know if we have any other further questions for Nicholas. But in case we don't have, maybe we've come to the end of this presentation. Allow me to thank Nicholas on everyone's behalf for the wonderful presentation. It has been so insightful. And we are going to share the presentation in case one missed some stuff here and there. Nicholas, thank you very much. And we hope to see a change in December. And the change we need is people passing and they move to the next level. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. Thank you for taking your time to log in and listen to Nicholas. And Nicholas, thank you very much. It has really been a wonderful presentation. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Bye. And to all
Bye.
students, good luck in December.